Welcome, listeners, to the very first episode of our brand new podcast. We're so excited you're tuning in today. My name is Gabriela, go by Gabby. I'm the Latina Roundtable's Community Engagement Coordinator for the Pomona Acts, and I'm your host for Cultivando Pomona. And today we have some very special guests with us. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Hi there, my name is Marcos Molina, and I am a community resident, and I am also the Community Resilience Coordinator with Day One.
Hello everyone, my name is Alex Vu. I'm an Associate Civil Engineer with the City of Pomona, and I'm the Project Manager for the Gary Avenue Complete Streets Project.
Perfect. So today we're going to be talking about complete streets. Alex, you want to give a little recap of what the complete streets is?
Yeah, of course. So the Gary Avenue Complete Streets Project is our city project where we're transferring Gary Avenue, one of the main corridors that lead into the downtown area, where we're making it more accommodating for different modes of travel. So we're adding up to 3 miles of new bike lane going each direction. We're improving the sidewalks, which also include upgrading the curb ramps to make them more ADA compliant. We're upgrading some traffic signals, and we're also installing raised median all the way down the center.
Perfect. Let's talk a little bit about why we decided to do complete streets on Gary Avenue. Can you explain a little bit about why Gary was chosen?
So Gary Avenue, it just so happened that the stars aligned there, where Gary Avenue happened to be in the center of the Pomona Acts grant area. So there's that aspect, and also as part of the corridor specific plan that the city of Pomona adopted back in 2014, it identified Gary Avenue as one of the main corridors and one of the areas where we want to make it a complete street. And so that's a little bit, and so that on top of just funding and alignments, it lined up perfectly with that, and that's how we selected this portion of Gary Avenue here.
Yeah, I agree that doing Gary Avenue was a great street. It also connects us to the A-Line station that recently opened, so it allows us to connect regionally within the area now, which is really cool. Just for $1.75.
Yeah, so I have a confession. I live in Pomona and I avoid Gary. I prefer to take the smaller streets. Sometimes I'll take Park Avenue, but I have seen a lot of the improvements and I do think that this is great for Pomona. Alex, with that being said, has Gary been part of your commute or do you travel down Gary at all?
It's not part of my daily commute. I mostly come in through Mission, but I do take Gary Avenue a lot of the times when I'm, traveling to the northern part of Pomona and doing site visits, and it's a huge difference. Before then it was just like 60 feet of open asphalt and just a little bit of paint, and that's it. And now it's brand new pavement, so it's nice and smooth. We got all this beautiful striping there, and then we got all these trees too, right? I'm excited for the next 5 to 10 years when everything's fully matured. It's gonna look really vibrant, and I love that. Right when we exit the 10 freeway, that's what people are gonna see, right? You take that and you go into downtown. It's like, wow, Pomona is really nice, and I love that we're setting this tone for that, for Pomona, because I think we deserve a lot of great things for it.
Yeah, 1,000%. I live right adjacent to Gary, so I feel so much pride now in the community when I barely get onto Gary biking down to work, which I'll talk about later. But it's really cool being able to see all these trees, and I think about it too. In 10 years, this is gonna look completely different, and I feel like people are really excited about that.
So, Marcos, I know that you're a cyclist. How has the improvement helped you or impacted your commute?
Yeah, so I actually do have to take Gary to get to work, and since the addition of the bike lane, I used to, don't sue me for this, but I used to go down the sidewalk because Gary is scary. It was fast, it was wide. Cars took that curve, that bend on Gary really quickly. So I was like, I'd rather bike down on the sidewalk. But now with the bike lane, I feel a lot more safer, and people are driving a lot slower, which is really great. I know I've seen some people complain about the driving speed, but you taking 2-3 more minutes to commute versus my life or death situation, I think I'd rather be safe than you be a little late. Just wake up a little 3 minutes earlier. I promise you'll be fine.
Yeah, and I don't blame you at all, Marcos. I mean, before this project, it was very scary, and people were going down it very fast. Yeah, that curve there at Alvarado, and also I think it's Pearl Street. Like people start to drift out, right?
Yeah.
but but yeah, with this connection, and it's also all part of a bigger picture that the city of Pomona has. It's called our active transportation plan, where we're looking to make citywide more improvements, more bicycle infrastructure, and more walkability. And so this Gary Avenue falls as part of that. And so I'm glad to hear that it's more accessible to different modes of transportation because that's the direction that we want to go, especially with the A line opening as well. You know, not everyone's going to have access to a car, so we have to figure out different ways to get there, which biking, walking, making that all accessible to connecting downtown or the middle of Pomona to the northern area as well. And yeah, definitely the speeds. I've definitely seen a huge drop in the speed as well. Really, with that raised median and all this striping, it's really narrowed it down, and it takes a couple of more minutes to travel up and down, but I think it's for the greater good, and everyone can now benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to take away also from the walking
I was
experience.
about to say that.
Yeah, like adding there's so many trees, I can't even count them. I always lose track every time I try to count them. But if you could give us an insight how many trees
I
went in,
think it's about 145 or
damn,
give or take. It was a lot.
that is a lot. But that's gonna help with our heat island effect,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
absolutely. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was the sidewalks. Now they are ADA compliant, right?
Hmm.
I know that this is a huge thing in our community as well, since a lot of people do have to walk. So that's great to have in our community now.
Yeah, so I think, after the implementation of this project, I've heard from a lot of our staff members as well at the city that they've been seeing a lot more people walking up and down Gary, and I'm so glad to hear that because that shows that this project's working and where we improved the walkability and the bicyclists, so we're actually helping the businesses around there because then they slow down. They're not just in their cars and they see all the businesses along this business corridor, which is another benefit of this project and not just improving safety.
I'm really excited with the improvements on Gary Avenue too, Alex, and the improvements that are coming to Holt as well. We have center medians coming in, maybe a future bike lane, who knows? There are a lot of trees also being put in, and I've seen a lot more people walk comfortably on Holt, which also brings awareness to a lot of the businesses there too, and going to be able to support those small businesses that we see along Holt.
Yeah, so Marcos, I know that you're in charge of the DAP. Do you want to go into a little bit about what DAP is and how that's been affected by the complete streets on Gary?
Okay, so the displacement avoidance plan, but we're going to be calling it DAP. So if you hear that word, that's what it means. So the DAP, we're working on making sure that as we build this great infrastructure in the city, that we are supporting our local residents and our small businesses in Pomona. Unfortunately, a lot of the times when we invest infrastructure in our cities, home prices and rent and commercial spaces go up and eventually price out local residents that have been here for a long time. Um, the idea of the DAP is to make sure that we are protecting our current residents and benefit from the infrastructure improvements that are coming. It's to basically create a safety net and ensure that there's progress, but the progress is for current residents. With that said, we've been talking a lot about small businesses, which is really cool. And I know I have heard, I've been told angrily that what about the small businesses, right? They're losing parking on Gary. And it's already difficult as it is. I could all think about personally, like I go to Donahue's a lot. Shameless. Love Donahue's. And they have a little parking lot. But sometimes that little parking lot gets filled up. A lot of people, like myself, love Donahue's and they can't park on Gary. Although I have seen some people um, park on Gary. And with that, I understand that a lot of small businesses would be impacted with the loss of parking spaces. But that does not mean that they're losing clientele. That just means that they have to shift focus with clientele. I bike, and a lot of young people like myself, and I young young people like myself bike and are starting to bike only or walk or take public transportation. As we know, costs for everything is going up. With recent policies, car prices are even going up significantly. My roommate pays this airing her dirty laundry, but she pays a lot for a car and insurance and gas, and it stresses me out, and I don't even make the payments. Um, with that, a lot of people are turning to e-bikes and public transportation, and cities are listening. The city of Pomona is listening, and they know that that's difficult, and they see that we need to move towards a multimodal like lifestyle, and businesses need to adapt as well. I would argue that if businesses put out a bike rack in the front, added like a 10% discount if you bike, I think a lot more people would come. And also, I think there's a lost art of window dressing. Back in the day, people used to dress up their windows and make them big and transparent and add artwork and display some of their products up in front. And I feel like we're losing that a little bit. And we do have laws within the zoning code that really enforce and push for that. But businesses slowly are adapting. I know things don't happen overnight, but they need to start taking advantage of that. If there's more pedestrians, people are going to window shop. I window shop. It's part of the art of walking.
Yeah, I know like Alex had said that people are slowing down as well. So that's a great way to plug that in. And also that's a great way to plug in DAP. That way you can get businesses to come out and reach out to Marcos. If you have any questions or ideas, I'm sure that Marcos would love to kind of sit down and bounce ideas or hash things out with y'all. So parking has always been a really big concern in our city. How was that considered in this design?
Yeah, so for this, I know we did lose a lot of the street parking on Gary Avenue, and during design, we did have a traffic study and a parking analysis when we looked into it as well. So we hired a consultant to go out there and do a survey at different times of the day to take a look at how much on-street parking is being utilized in this section of Gary here, and also taking a look at how many of these businesses will also have or still have their on-site parking that they can still have. And so that was taken into consideration. And um, because we wanted to shift Gary Avenue to a complete street, we also have to understand that we do need to make some sacrifices, right? Instead of having on street parking now, we have the bike lanes, which I think for the majority of us, it makes us happy, right? It makes it more accessible and opens up the opportunity for different customers and local residents as well. And that is also the general shift that everyone wants to go to across the country. We want to make everything more accessible, not be so car centric.
Right.
I think there's so much care that city staff take into making sure that the decisions that they make are well thought out. And I think hearing like a whole firm was hired to just do a study on parking, that costs a lot of money. Like no one, they didn't send someone just to stand out there and be like, okay, looks like there's no parking today, and that's it, right? Like that that means that they're the experts and they're doing things that we may not understand, but the numbers add up. The numbers add up, and if parking was such a huge concern, I'm sure the consulting firm would have told the city like, hey, I don't think this is feasible at all. I know sometimes we'd like to think that things are a certain way, like, hey, parking is a necessity, like we need it on the street. But
Yeah, maybe that's also a mindset that we need to change too, right? Is it a necessary or is it a luxury?
I also know that I'm not trying to what's the word? Like I understand that a lot of homes here, a lot of families are multi-generational. So there's multiple people living there and multiple cars for one household. We understand that, but we also understand that these sacrifices are made for the betterment of our city, for the environment, for our families and community, so that we can sustain Pomona and be here longer.
yeah, I think Pomona acts in its truest form is about community and like sometimes bigger issues, right? Like it's uh, the climate change that we have, right? And how a lot of people are stressed about that. That's not a me problem. It's not a you problem. It's an us problem.
Right.
And I think when there's space, like I'm allowed to bike to work and get around by bike, so that maybe a family that does need a second car may use it, and desperately need it. But sometimes we don't, and I think some people are or don't need to, but should consider maybe taking up a little bit of sacrifice for another family or for the betterment of our community.
Yeah, I'm loving this combo. Okay, so some last questions that we have are how will the sidewalks, the bike lanes, and the medians be maintained? And are there any plans to expand complete streets into other corridors? I know we touched on that a little bit.
Yeah. So as far as maintenance for the sidewalks, bike lanes, and medians, so so we do have city staff as well as some uh, contractor services that, like Athens street service and trash pickup, bike lanes and striping and whatnot. We do have city crew that maintains some striping and they address potholes here and there, depending on how big the project is, and but to a larger scale, we typically have kind of a like a 5 to 10 year plan looking out into the future about which streets need maintenance or rehabilitation is what we call it. And so that's how we kind of determine maintenance there. As far as the landscaping, the medians itself, we also do have city staff that, depending on the location, they take care of landscaping. So, all the great parks that we have, all the other medians like Holt or North Gary or South Gary, each each one will have we have a plan for it, and it's all being accounted for. And so that's also one thing to keep in mind too, is that it's great to be building out all this infrastructure, but as we build out more infrastructure, our budget needs to get bigger and bigger. um, but and the second question there, and expanding to complete streets into other corridors. So the city is, as part of our active transportation plan, we have identified other locations, and there are grant applications and grant awards in the works to look into that, and it's something that we're continuously doing, right? So even right now, we have what is called the Pomona Safety Action Plan, where we've been pushing and marketing that for I think the last month or two, where we're trying to get the community's input as much as we can and sending out surveys to get feedback, because you guys are the eyes on the street, right? You guys know what the patterns are, what areas need improvement or improving safety. And so by filling out those surveys and bringing it to our attention, that we can collectively put this into a report, and understanding that these are year-long processes, right? Once we have the report and we have a base, a study, and we use that to apply to these state and federal grants, because these are expensive projects. They're multi-million dollars, and so we need that grant funding to help build those out.
Yeah, I was gonna say that hearing someone from the city talk about doing surveys and attending meetings, I'm gonna say this directly to the community: do it. Take the time to take that survey for 5 minutes. Take the time to go to that meeting. If it's just one out of a series, try to make it to one. Your input is so valuable, and when you don't fill it out, I often hear like, "Why did they do this? Why did they do that? Who told them?" People did. The people who wanted it to see it come to fruition did, and they made their voice heard. So take that time to take that survey, because if not, the cities doesn't have much data to work with.
Yeah. So just to add to that, something that we talk about in the roundtable is that we see the same community members in everything, right? So it's these same community members that are always making these kind of decisions on behalf of the whole city. So if you want to have your input, like please show up, do these surveys, come out. It doesn't take that much of your time. Even if you can't go to these meetings, why not write an email, do something to get your voice heard.
And I believe this is also on the city website too, for for those of you that it's difficult to make it out to these meetings, especially if I know all of us are busy with work or having meetings or raising a family, that we're trying to make it accessible as possible. And that feedback is also helpful as well, right? Like, what's the easiest way to reach everybody? We we don't always have the best answer, and so that feedback is always helpful as well.
Yeah. And then on that note, I know that Alex, you touched on it a little bit in the beginning. What would we want Pomona to look like in the next 5 to 10 years? Marcos, do you want to start?
Yeah. No cars. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Maybe less cars.
A little bit less cars, a little bit more people walking. You know, 2020 was such a dark time for all of us during the pandemic, but you know what? Something came out of it. A lot of people walked. A lot of people walked, and a lot of people noticed things in their neighborhood, whether there was a local park, or there was local businesses, or the conditions of the sidewalks, or the trees, or the lack of trees. It got people walking and talking, and I think in the next 5-10 years, I hope to see a lot more people walking. I hope to see a lot more people biking. I hope to see a lot more skateboarders and scooters and more people waiting at bus stops. I also am excited to see what the trees will look like. And lastly, I can't wait to see how people are going to get around in 5 to 10 years, as we're building out more bike lanes and we're getting more trees installed. With the upgrades of Pomona Axe coming into the city, I'm interested to see how our neighborhoods change for not like moving people, but like changing our habits, whether it's like going out for a walk more or spending time at our local park, or it's like the kids are now walking to school rather than getting dropped off. Those little things, I'm excited to see how it changes the dynamic of our major corridors.
Well, Alex, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, in 5 to 10 years, aside from Gary Avenue and Holt Avenue, being fully matured, I mean, one, I would love to revisit that too and see how it held up after 5 to 10 years. Are we seeing increase in different modes and activation, and see how the businesses are doing there, and take that as, it could be a lessons learned, or take that as an example, right? I'd love to have that as like the baseline of what everywhere else in Pomona should be. And so hopefully we win more future grants as well, and that we can continue doing all these improvements. Just like the roundabouts, just like Gary Avenue and Holt, just like the Civic Center. There's a ton going on, and so I hope that continues, and hope that we have all these great projects coming and showcasing how beautiful and vibrant that Pomona is, and the community that we have here, and what's so special and unique about it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. Yeah, just for me, I have seen the upkick in cyclists just in my neighborhood. I've seen a lot more people, taking their bikes out, and I know I should be one of them. But maybe baby steps. But yeah, thank you all so much. Anything else? Anything else? Anything else? I think that's good. Thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share it and stay tuned for what's next. Before you go, we want to invite you to our Transforming Pomona Together second public meeting. It's happening Thursday, February 26th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the Palomars Park Community Center. You'll hear updates on current projects and upcoming plans, break bread together while learning more about Pomona Axe. We'd love to see you there. To RSVP, get more information about the public meeting, or more information about Pomona Axe, please visit our website at pomonaaxe.org. Did you know that Pomona residents could qualify for free solar panels? Well, stay tuned for our next episode on Pomona Power Up.
The roundabouts are so good.
I'm glad.
When we went to the farm, they're so
Dude, they were.
good.
Yeah, I'm very happy. I've had a couple people ask me, like, when I've talked about Pomona Axe, they're like,
Yeah.
did you guys do the roundabouts? I was like, no.
Wish we could claim it. They're bomb.
I'm glad you guys like them, because we've been getting a lot of heat on them. It's just like,
I've seen
why?
terrible roundabouts.
Yeah.
That ugly, like they're not even like raised a little bit, so people just.
It's
drive
just a
over
flat
them.
circle. It's just like painted, right?
Or like plastic all around.
Yeah.
This one's beautiful. The ones on Parker.
I think it's just like change and people just aren't
It's
comfortable
hard.
with it, and
Yeah.
it's like a learning curve. I don't know.
And then a
people
year
don't
later,
understand.
they're like, "Oh, this is great."
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just that.
And that's like
The growing
with, like,
pains.
yeah, that comes with all the changes that are happening,
Right,
Like
right.
the growing pains, they're growing
Yeah.
both space right now, but then we get used to it.
Yeah.
Well, that's why like this podcast helps, because it's a little bit more
Mhm.
education and trying to break it down for people from the community too.
Yeah.
Y'all were natural.
Yeah, you did really
There
good.
you go. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, the one that was like, oh no.
He's like, yeah, this is like my 18th podcast.
Yeah.
Bro.
When I thought I was gonna be an engineer, I'm like, all right, I don't.
I'm podcaster too.
Like,
Better see
man.
podcasts from that LinkedIn now.
I know you
Jeez,
That's right.
Plans, yeah. No, but thank you guys. You guys made this easy too.
Oh, no worries.